Thank you for choosing to spend a portion of your day with us today. My name is Val Nixon, and I'll be facilitating our webinar. All participants will be muted until the question and answer session at the end of the presentation. I'd like to encourage all of you to use the chat feature to submit questions throughout our presentation. We'll address the questions during the Q&A portion of the webinar. We'll also be drawing a name at the conclusion of the webinar to win an iPod Touch. You must be present to win, so please make sure to stay online throughout the entire presentation. Right now, it's my pleasure to introduce TJ Police of ISOdx Solutions, who will be speaking to us today about transforming your IT customers into advocates. TJ?
Thank you, Val. I'd like to welcome everyone to our presentation today. First, I want to make sure you can all see our screen, Transforming Customers into Advocates. If for some reason you cannot see the screen, please reply in your chat box so we can work on any technical difficulties that might exist. To get us started, I thought it would be great to give you an example of what exemplary customer service is that results in transforming your customers into advocates.
USA Prime Credit, my name Peggy. You have problem? Peggy? Okay. Lost my card. Need a replacement sent to my hotel tomorrow. 1 month. Let's try this again. You believe in yourself? Yes. I believe in you too, Peggy. You used to be my go-to guy. Or girl. Now stand tall and get out to replace my card. You inspire me. 3 weeks. Okay, let's start over.
Want better customer service? Switch to Discover. Ranked #1 in customer loyalty. It pays to Discover.
Obviously, this is not a plug for Discover, but my guess is all of us at one point or another have experienced support like the stellar support we get from Peggy. I'm especially a big fan of the phones ringing in the background, incessantly ringing with no one answering them. But all kidding aside, this is clearly an example of customer support that is not going to turn your customers into advocates.
I would have to agree with that, TJ, but how do you think it's best to begin creating loyal customers?
Well, the first step in creating loyal customers is providing simple customer satisfaction. A satisfied customer has had their fundamental expectations met. If they're asked, a satisfied customer will say, quote unquote, nice things about your product or service. However, they are not an advocate for your brand. Unlike a true advocate or loyal customer, we'll use those terms interchangeably, a satisfied customer can still be lured away.
Well, how do you go about making that conversion to loyalty?
Well, as we said, to develop a loyal customer or advocate, you must start with satisfied customers. Fortunately, there are 4 elements that come into play when we talk about creating satisfied customers. The first has to deal with the perfect product or service. And of course, the word perfect here is meant kind of anecdotally because it deals with the perception of the customer with regards to your product or service. Customers will typically accommodate failures due to unpredictable circumstances. However, incomplete or low-quality products or services from a customer's perspective simply will not be tolerated.
So what types of things really matter to customers?
Well, the second element here is caring delivery. And I know this might sound a little tongue-in-cheek, but the manner in which a product or service is provided matters just as much as the quality or timeliness of the product or service. Think back to our Peggy example for the kind of standard response to the card replacement, 1 month, not delivered in a very caring manner. I'd also ask you to think back to your own retail experience and how was that delivery of service received. There are some retailers who struggle in this area, while others offer a very compelling value proposition based solely on the factor of their delivery. For example, Nordstrom's.
What else is important?
Well, the third element is timeliness. Timeliness is determined by the customer. In other words, it's up to us as the provider of a product or service to set the expectation with the customer in advance. In many cases, the perceived quality of the product or service is closely linked with the timing of delivery. For example, it's fairly unreasonable to expect a custom-built bookcase to be delivered in 1 day. However, it's also unreasonable to expect a customer to wait more than a week for a standard assemble-it-yourself bookcase.
Well, what's that fourth critical element?
Well, the fourth critical element is problem resolution. Problem resolution is not just about restoring the situation to the pre-problem state. It's about restoring customer satisfaction. This is a difficult challenge, to say the least, because the three factors we've just described, product quality, caring delivery, and timeliness, all come back into question. The quality of the product or service, the timeliness, the problem was resolved, and the manner in which the solution was delivered will all come into play to reshape how the customer perceives your brand.
But when something does go wrong, what's the best way to smooth things over?
Well, inevitably, at some point, a customer's expectations will fail to be met. When that happens, the first thing to do is to apologize for the situation. A customer appreciates simple empathy for their situation. They simply want to be taken seriously, and they want their situation validated.
Well, that takes a lot of the steam out of the situation, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, Val, and that's critical for the second step. We want to try to diffuse any emotion that might be in play so that we can begin to review the complaint. And if we can begin to kind of disarm the emotional state of customer support calls, we can successfully seek to understand exactly what's going on from our customer's perspective. In this step, we gather information about the problem so that we can move on to problem resolution. It's important here to avoid the temptation to jump directly to problem resolution after asking only a few questions. The key in this step is to obtain all of the information about the situation so you can clearly articulate the problem back to the customer for validation.
Just so you can both be sure you're understanding the problem in the same way.
That's exactly right. Once that validation has occurred, we can move on to step 3, which is fix the problem.
Well, I would think that would fix everything and be the last step.
Well, not really. Customer satisfaction won't be achieved simply by restoring the customer to his pre-problem state. After all, from the customer's perspective, they've been inconvenienced. Their valuable time has been spent resolving an unexpected issue. In order to restore customer satisfaction, the customer is expecting something extra to compensate them for the inconvenience.
Something extra?
Yes, I know what you're thinking. Oh boy, what's this going to cost me? Well, in many cases, this something extra does not have to be something material. For example, many customers simply want their voice to be heard. They may simply want to offer feedback on how your product or service can be improved, or receive some assurance that the issue will not occur again. By following up with these customers after their problem has been resolved, letting them know their feedback has been shared with company management, it provides them with a sense of empowerment, and it satisfies their need to be heard.
Well, I definitely see how that could mend fences. And then how should you wrap up?
Well, we should wrap up by increasing our organizational intelligence, and that simply means documenting what we've learned. Most organizations leverage a knowledge base of some type to document common problems and their resolutions. This is critical for capturing information like the number of times customers experience specific problems. That allows us to revisit the whole perfect product or service component so that we can improve it going forward for the satisfaction of our customers.
So tell us a bit about how to get started with this advocate creation.
As I mentioned earlier, in order to have advocates for your brand, you must first have satisfied customers. And here's the key point. The problem resolution process gives us the opportunity to transform satisfied customers into advocates because new perceptions about our product, delivery, and timeliness can be created. There are many software tools available that help manage the problem resolution process, from ticketing systems to knowledge bases to monitoring tools to self-service portals. However, I'd like to spend a moment and just talk to you about the ISOdx forensic software tool. ISOdx differs from all of these other tools because ISOdx captures the information required to resolve the specific technology support issue. The end customer is not required to participate in the resolution process. How does ISOdx do this? Well, ISOdx captures periodic snapshots or pictures at a given point in time for each supported technology device, be it a server, a desktop, or a switch. It stores this data on a host server, and it makes it available to IT support representatives in advance of the technology support call coming in. According to Gartner, 80% of the time spent resolving a technical support issue is consumed by finding the cause. And that's a staggering factor. Only 20% of the time is spent resolving the actual issue. In fact, Gartner also states that 87% of the support calls generated are due to infrastructure changes. This means changes is made to the customer's underlying IT infrastructure. By giving IT support representatives the ability to compare 2 points in time, ISOdx can identify down to the specific character exactly what changed throughout the entire customer IT ecosystem, all with just a few mouse clicks. By providing IT support reps with the ability to identify exactly what changed over time, ISOdx has helped our customers improve mean time to resolution by over 90% and customer satisfaction by 300%. Dramatically reducing the time required to solve technology support issues has a direct correlation to raising customer satisfaction. It also reduces a support organization's overall cost to serve. In fact, organizations that use ISOdx typically realize a 100% ROI in less than 6 months, simply by improving their efficiency and effectiveness in resolving issues. However, the real power of ISOdx lies in its ability to help organizations create advocates for their brands.
Well, okay, so now the customer's satisfied, but taking relationships to the next level requires even more, right?
Exactly right, Val. Obviously, having satisfied customers is a worthy goal, and as we've said, it's a prerequisite to creating advocates for your brand. Again, advocates are repeat buyers that will rave about their experiences with your organization proactively. They won't wait to be asked. They will be proactive evangelists. They also will not be easily swayed by the flavor of the day offers being extended by your competition.
So how do we turn satisfied customers into advocates?
Well, first, we must constantly be testing and anticipating their needs. We must be in constant pursuit of answers to questions like, how do we deliver more value to our customers? How do we enhance their experience? How do we provide them with tools that make what they do easier to do? How do we give them the ability to do something that they can't do today? Obviously, answers to these questions requires active engagement with your user community, and it must occur in a safe, collaborative environment. There's no room here for defensive responses or judgments about the feedback being received. The objective here is simple. Listen to your customers, make sure you understand what's being said, and convey a sense that their message is important to you and you're hearing their communication.
And then?
Well, next, it's important to gather forensic information about how your product is actually being used by your customers. For example, what features or functions are most frequently used? Which ones are least frequently used? Which ones are used almost exclusively by new users? Exclusively by experienced users? Is there a feature or function that's buried so deep within the user interface that customers simply don't know it exists? Is there a particularly annoying requirement, like a configuration setting, that most customers disable or change on every system installation? By evaluating what you hear from your customers, quote unquote, the customer needs, and combining it with the customer usage information that you've gathered, you can adjust your product roadmap to address items you believe will have the most value to your customers. Clearly, your entire roadmap will not be comprised of just the items that are identified by your customers. There's always technical overhead with regards to fixing existing issues, improving performance, etc. However, it's critical to develop a balance between the technical items and the feedback that you've captured from your customers.
Well, do you have any advice about executing these cycles for us?
Well, for each cycle, it's critical that you issue communications to your customers. This communication lets them know that you've heard the quote-unquote customer desired features that they made apparent in step 1 of the cycle, and that you are addressing the concerns as part of your product roadmap. This communication not only provides valuable usage information about your product, it reinforces the value that your organization and brand place on what you hear from your customers. It says, we hear you, we have direct access to your input, and here's how we're addressing what we heard.
Well, that's great, but we just covered the cyclical process of transforming satisfied customers into advocates, but what tactical actions can an organization take to actually implement such a process?
Well, the best way to illustrate this, in my opinion, is to take a simple use case, and this is a very simple use case. Let's assume we're an independent software vendor that's interested in creating advocates from our existing customer base. If you recall back to the cycle we just identified, the first step in this process is to test or anticipate your customer's needs. The independent software vendor could leverage a forensic software tool like ISOdx to do things like ensuring that prerequisites at your customer's ecosystem are satisfied before the customer installs a patch or software upgrade. Proactively identifying conditions that are indicative of problems. For example, if the customer erroneously makes changes to a system or configuration file, the tool like ISOdx could let you know in advance. Finally, they can use the tool to create a premier service and support offering that tracks changes made not just in the ISV's product, but in the customer's entire IT ecosystem. This would remove the burden of support from the customer and create a new revenue stream for the independent software vendor. The next step is transforming satisfied customers and advocates is to gather the customer usage information. Again, here, the ISV could use ISOdx to do things like measuring the frequency, duration, and product usage habits of your customers, identify where customers typically access the help system in your product and how they use that help system, and proactively reminding customers of available features that they are not taking advantage of in your product. The final step in the cyclical process is refining product delivery and timeliness. ISOdx has been used by many of our customers to streamline the software development and change control process, to eliminate ecosystem variables, and ensure consistency across environments and platforms. I think we'd all agree that as IT ecosystems become more complex and more tightly integrated, it's becoming more and more common for infrastructure components to be at fault for causing issues with the application or system that you are responsible for supporting. Support technicians today face the daunting challenge of understanding the relationship between their supported application or system and the quote-unquote infrastructure components with which it integrates. Investigating and resolving these complex support issues can be a time-consuming, painful exercise that almost always results in a negative impact to customer satisfaction.
Okay, but in the end, what can an advocate really do for you?
Well, this is the really exciting part. What is the power of creating advocates? Well, one of the most important characteristics of an advocate is their loyalty to your brand. Advocates don't switch to your competition based on special offers or pricing. They are bought in to your value proposition and will be steadfast supporters of your brand in perpetuity because they have made an emotional connection with what you offer. Secondly, advocates will tell anyone and everyone about your brand. They're passionate about it because it's become personal to them. Combined with the visibility and accessibility offered by social media, advocates can become one of your greatest generators of net new business. Finally, according to an Accenture study, a very small 5% increase in customer retention has a dramatic 75% increase in customer net present value. Why is this the case? Well, because over time, customers become more profitable. That's why customer loyalty is such an important key and something we use synonymous with advocates. Also, according to a white paper from Zuberance, a social media marketing company, brand advocates are worth at least 5 times more than average customers. So to summarize our presentation, advocates are nothing less than unpaid ambassadors for your brand. By tapping into the passion and feedback of your advocates, your organization can create a competitive advantage by providing your customers with the perfect product when they want it in a manner that makes them feel unique.
Well, thank you, TJ. This concludes our presentation, and I believe we have some time for just a couple of questions. We will unmute your phones now, and please stay on the line for the iPod Touch drawing as you need to be present to win. Do we have chat questions that you want to review, TJ?
Not at this time. Is anyone on the line would like to ask a question? Okay, here's a chat question. How do you place a value on advocates? Well, it's a great question and something we tried to touch on here, but obviously in 30 minutes we're hard-pressed to really try to quantify the value. I'll throw a couple more interesting statistics out about that. Clearly, it's going to vary from organization to organization. A couple interesting data points I've uncovered as part of my research is that a single post on a social media application by a brand advocate reaches, on average, 150 people. If you combine that with the fact that 90% of consumers trust word of mouth as a marketing tactic, Compared with only a 33% trust level for online ads, you have a powerful combination in what advocates can do to help create net new business for your organization.
I think we had another one come in.
Let's see. Okay, here we go. How do you identify which of your customers are advocates? Well, that's a great question. Generally speaking, there are customers that respond favorably to a single question. And clearly, you'd want to examine and come up with a more robust method of identifying advocates than what I'm going to recommend here. But one key question that's critical in distinguishing satisfied customers from advocates is the answer to this question. How likely are you to recommend our product or service to friends and colleagues? The answer to this question is the single greatest predictor of customers that are likely to be advocates for your brand. I'll just add on to that. Once you've identified who your advocates are, the key point then is to get them engaged and keep them engaged. If you are unable to do this, you will kind of dissuade your advocates. It's a key point to keep them engaged by offering them opportunities to foster that relationship that you're building with them. So there is a number of ways to do this. First, and probably most obviously, a customer loyalty program gives your organization an opportunity to appreciate loyal customers. Secondly, providing an easy method for advocates to publish ratings and reviews of their experiences with your brand gives them a sense of empowerment, and it will give you unfettered access to both positive feedback as well as areas for improvement. Third, you can make it easy for advocates to share and participate in your brand, whether it's forwarding special offers to friends and colleagues in their quote-unquote network or commenting on a blog post about a subsequent feature or offering. Giving advocates a chance to participate is the key to keeping them engaged.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry, that's all the time we have for questions today. Please feel free to contact us at info@isodexsolutions.com for any additional discussion. If you're interested in learning more about how to create advocates, I would recommend that you pick up Exceptional Service, Exceptional Profit by Leonardo Ingheller and Michael Solomon. And now for the drawing. TJ, would you do the honors, please?
Absolutely, be my pleasure. Okay, here we go. And the winner is Eugenia Moreno. Is Eugenia there? She is.
Yes.
Eugenia. Okay, Eugenia's on the line.
Excellent.
Wow. Wow.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for attending our webinar. And thanks to everyone for attending our session today. We'll make slides available to you soon. We really appreciate your time, and have a great day.
Thank you.